This is the Let's Get Real Estate Show with your host, Danielle Chason.
Full-time investor, strategic consultant, motivational coach, sought-after speaker,
and host of your number one real estate investing show, Let's Get Real Estate,
where real people are doing real estate.
Hey everybody, it's Danielle Chason, and we're back with the Let's Get Real Estate podcast. And this is where I bring to you real people doing real estate. And today, there's nobody else that gets more real than Diana Lizarazo. Diana, thanks for coming on the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be on your show.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I know you've had me on your show a couple of times. You do these Instagram lives and even helped me through learning the technology to figure out these Instagram lives because I'm still trying to learn this app called Instagram. But you're out there, you're doing lots of stuff. You're on social media, you're building an app yourself. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. You've built an app yourself, which is so much fun. But before we get into all of that, can you give me a quick 2-3 minute background into how you got into real estate? Like, what was your past life? Because I know you from before, and you had, technology background, IT background. So tell me a little bit about kind of your past life and how you got into real estate to now becoming a full-time real estate investor.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So for me, actually, my family has been in real estate. So that view has always been there. I've always wanted to buy properties, but I can tell you the way I saw properties was different. Or for example, specifically mortgages, right? Like we were taught debt is bad. And to give you an example of how scary debt was for me, was I bought a brand new car out of university to be able to go to work. And I paid that off within a year. Like I just put all my money down. And so imagine me buying my first property. I couldn't pay it off in a year, but my mission was to pay it off in 3 years to 5 years max. That's how scary debt was for me. So I had already, so seeing my parents have tenants in there, I liked it, right? Because I was like, oh, the tenants are paying rent and they're paying for my mortgage. It's all these things made sense to me, or that's how I justified, okay, the debt at that time, even though you're paying debt, but I'm not paying it, someone else is paying it, So I was in that world and I started off in the long-term hold. But that was what I always had that around me. So I knew I wanted to do that. And then naturally I'm an electrical engineer. I was in consulting. I built business processes for companies. So I naturally have this creating solutions type of mentality. And so for me, from going to that to getting into real estate was actually not that different to me. A lot of people tell me oh my God, what are you doing getting into real estate? You're an engineer. And to me, it's I'm solving problems. That's what excites me. That's actually why I got into engineering, because it's what is going on? How can I help? How can I make something happen? And so that's what got me into real estate. And I just see people, they can do it full time. I'm a person can't tell me I can't do anything. So it's just if other people can do it, I need to figure out how to do it and it will get done.
I love that, because that's the whole spirit of the podcast, which is why I created this podcast. It's to keep it real so that people would understand that we're just real people doing real estate. We're maybe a little bit further on the journey than somebody else who's just starting, but that doesn't mean you can't do it if you're not in it. And you also remind me of a story with your story about how people were looking at you like you're crazy, but that's just because they weren't in this space. So they didn't understand it. They didn't get it. And I remember I was a guest on Gary Hibbert's podcast. He's a fantastic guy, good friend now. We've grown, I've gotten to know him. And he told me the story. We went for dinner one time. He told me the story about he left the financial industry. He worked for a big bank. And everybody was like, where are you going? You can't give up this job. Engineering, finance, you've got it made. Yeah, but you got to spend 30 years, 35 years of your life, right? And you have a ceiling. You can only go so far.
Go of those benefits, right? They're just don't let go of the benefits. And afterwards you're I don't care about the benefits.
Right? Oh, and you were in the banking system for a while too, doing the consulting. Yeah. And so, yeah. And to leave that for somebody who has an employee mindset, who's working for those, that retirement is hard to let go of. You need that pension in the retirement. If you don't have real estate, you're going to need it, right? So it's one or the other. Has to be. How else are you going to support yourself, in your old age? But anyhow, so it just reminded me of that. So many people, but he did the same thing. Everybody thought he was crazy. And he just said, you know what, guys, I'm going to prove you all wrong. So, but yeah, I'm so glad you said that. You're just somebody, if anybody else can do it, why can't I? And that's the whole spirit of this podcast. Okay. So moving on. So here you are now, a full-time investor, gave up your job, quit your job, doing this full-time, and you've gotten a beautiful portfolio. You've got 22, 23 units. They're all long-term holds. And you started doing this through BRRR was your strategy at the time when you started 7, 8 years ago, right? And so for those people who don't know what BRRR is, if you've listened to my podcast, you should know what this is by now. But for those of you who are new, BRRR is where you buy, you renovate, you rent, and then refinance the house. And then you pull back the cash that you've invested into the property when you bought and renovated. So back in the day, you used to be able to do that and pull out 100% of your cash and maybe even get a small payday out of it. That doesn't happen anymore, right, Diana? So you've had to
Yes.
really shift gears on your strategy, especially with the economy changing the way it has. It is cyclical and we've kind of gone through a cycle. So what is it you're doing differently now? Because surviving in this market is not easy. And there's a lot of people that are drowning. They don't know what to do because what's worked for the last 8 years isn't working anymore. So I'd really like to know what shifts you've made in your business and where that came from. Like, what markers are you looking for in order to make those decisions?
Yeah, there's a definitely lots of changes going on. And I would even say one of the biggest things I was doing, especially last year, and I think at the beginning and middle or beginning of this year too, was talking to mortgage brokers. Like I felt like on a monthly basis because you would just hear so many changes happening. It was quite crazy. And something like that, for example, made me even just want to kind of cool things off because you just hear, for example, one person didn't get the appraisal they wanted and they had the comparables, but they were being so conservative because it was last year and things were really even more, I would say, really scary. I felt like banks were really scared last year. So they were just like, let's nip this in the butt. But then literally like a month, two later, another person was able to get it. They were able to get a good, like a decent appraisal. Again, things were still going down a little bit, but they were able to get the appraisal they expected. And so for me, even around that time period, I mean, I was looking, but at the same time, I would say I'm not a person to rush. And I could tell you, like, my personality, I'm not a person to rush already when the good times were on. And for example, in the good times, like I had really good deals that were going on. People would tell me my deals were like diamonds in the rough. Like I would find really good deals. I'd find really good BRRRRs. Like that actually in the time when people said that there were no more 100% BRRRRs, I can tell you that I got actually 100% BRRRR plus more. And not only that, it cash flowed like crazy. That one's like my little trophy, I have to say. I really love that one because that one was like, seriously, like, no, everyone's like, this doesn't exist anymore. And I'm like, look at my baby right here.
That's
So
awesome.
so I think it's also, I say also not getting caught up on what the general public is saying and saying like this doesn't exist or that doesn't exist. Because I could tell you, for example, another thing happening right now. There's a person I'm private lend. This is a private lend deal that I'm doing right now. It actually closed today or yesterday. I don't know which day because I have two going on, one after the other. But one closed, I believe today actually, and they got an amazing deal. It's so much lower than what they're seeing in the market right now, that they're going to be able to sell it really easily. And even if they don't, and they have to, let's say, for example, they have to keep it, they're cash flowing and they'll cash flow on a single family home. They don't even have to
Wow.
duplex it for it to cash flow. So again, I feel like you have to be patient for them to come. Like I can tell you, I'm not the kind of person that works on a million projects. I hear other people working on so many projects at the same time. I'm not one of those. I am very strict with my criteria, but when they come like I find good deals because I'm willing to wait. And I think sometimes like that, sometimes waiting is also important because imagine you have this cash and you send it off on a deal where you're like, it's okay, right? It's going to do good. But then another deal comes up where it's like, oh man, that was so much better. And you could have just waited a little bit longer. So I feel like not compromising on your criterias is a good thing. Like I don't like to compromise on my criterias, and usually I get what I want. Like that. Let's say now I can also say my application has taken up a lot of my time. So I'm not so into looking at the properties. Like I do look at some here and there to try to find things, but I feel like because my application is kind of taking up a lot of my time these days, that I'm not looking as hard as I probably would before. Like I'm pretty sure I probably would have found something if it were like my number one focus. I'm probably sure I would have found something by now.
Well, and I think that's a big key because a lot of people say, yeah, there's no deals out there right now, but they're actually not looking. They're just
Yeah.
kind of following the crowd. And I think it's
Yeah.
important if you want to find a good deal, you have to go digging into that haystack to find the needles, like looking for the needle in the haystack. And maybe the needle's not that small because I don't think it's that bad out there. I think there are
Yeah.
deals to be had, but you do have to
Hmm.
do the time in order to find that deal. And so I think it's important to understand and be honest with ourselves. Like if you think there's no deals, are you actually looking? Right. So
Hmm.
I think to your point though, waiting to find the right deal is also critical because if you go in and you don't buy the right deal and you don't do as well as you wanted, or you end up losing money on that, then you're going to just validate what everybody's been saying there's no deals out there, right? When there
Yeah.
really is still good deals out there for sure. For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. But now you've gone from doing BRRRRs because BRRRRs are a little bit more difficult to find. You went from BRRRRs to actually, I want to ask you before I ask you that question. Where is that? What market was that in where you bought a single family house that's cash flowing?
Oh, the one, not me that bought the one I private lend for. That was in
Yeah.
Simcoe.
Wow. Yeah.
That's in Simcoe. Yeah.
So, you know, in these times, again, I want to talk about surviving in this market. In these times, maybe you have to change the market that you're in. And maybe this person doesn't normally look at Simcoe, but has changed markets to where the numbers are a little bit more attractive, right? So, what else have you done? Because you used to do BRRRRs, it's not as attractive anymore because you have to leave some money in the deal now, and that chews
Mhm.
up some of your capital. It's just a little bit scary in this market because the market still is soft and it may still continue to go down a little bit, soften a little bit more. But so now what you're doing is more flips. You're focusing more on flips. You've changed that strategy a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I would say, for example, I would say if it's anything, the way I calculate things actually changed. So before, for example, I would do a flip. For example, I did a luxury flip. That one, if things went bad, that one, imagine staying with a flip that was like eating up 8,000 a month, 7,000 a month. That one was one of those, I didn't really have too many exit strategies. But that being said, we were very confident. And for example, we made sure we were meeting deadlines and things like that. Like there was a lot of different other type of strategies going on behind it because of what we were doing with it. But for example, like right now, I don't think I would do that. And right now, for example, I say that I actually look for many different strategies, right? So I prefer to do the flips because like that, as me running as a business, I can't really have my money depleting that way, right? I need to be, if anything, increasing the money so I have more money to invest in. So I'll look for a flip, but I'll see like what happens if it's a BRRRR. And I do many different scenarios now. So I'm always looking for a flip, but I also have to make sure that it works as a BRRRR. But exactly what you say, it may not like in this case, I'm not looking that it is 100% BRRRR. Like I'm just carrying, is this something that I can carry if I can't sell it, or I don't want to sell it because let's say the market gets worse and it's at a number that I just don't want to sell it. And I want to make sure that I can hold it for long term if I need to.
Yeah.
So I started looking at just like different strategies, and even like that, like for example, you hear people like getting stuck on privates, for example, and then even understanding like, can I move into an A or B, or should I start off with an A or B lens, right? Like even BRRRRs aren't really happening that much right now because like that, like it's just it's people are now doing BRRRRs that are like 1, 2 year, 3 year term BRRRRs, right? It's more like, well, let me just get an AB lender because it's not even worth it to go into privates, right? And then refi, because the purpose of a private was you go to refinance and you're pulling out all this money, which you're not really getting those benefits right now. So even you're hearing people do AB lenders and just thinking, okay, if I can do it in 1 year and it's worth it, great. But more now they're just waiting, like doing, okay, let's do a 2 or 3 year term type of BRRRR instead. Right. So it's just so many different strategies going on right now. And for me, like that, I'm stuck on the flips just because I can't really do something that is not going to bring me back my money, completely. Because it's like in a business sense, that doesn't make sense. You need to be increasing your business, right? Your profits and your things need to increase. You can't be like leaving stuff away, especially that my business is small. If I had like loads of money just like flowing out of me, okay, you just put them like what the rich people do, right? Just put their money in houses because they just loaded with money. But for me, it's like I'm in a growth. Like I need to grow my business, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think for a full-time investor, that's really important because you need to protect the capital that you have because you have to survive. You still need disposable income. So if you do take the capital that you have and you're doing it in BRRRRs, but then you're leaving, 5% in that BRRRR, 8% in that BRRRR, 10% in that BRRRR, 9% in that BRRRR, then all of a sudden there's no more cash left. Plus, you
Mm-hmm.
need income to survive. And so we all know when we buy rental properties, there's not a whole lot of cash flow to live off of when you first buy them. That comes later in time. So definitely when you're a full-time investor, you do have to have some sort of money flowing and you want to increase that cash flow for sure. But you did
Mm-hmm.
mention, I want to circle back. You did mention now when you're looking at a property, a potential property to invest in, that you're not just looking at it through one lens, you're looking at it through multiple exit strategies, like multiple strategies. So, okay, maybe I want to do it this way, but if it doesn't work, what are my options? And I think it's so important now more than ever to be having those multiple exit strategies. Whereas for the last 8, 10 years, that hasn't been an issue because we were able to really sell properties and we were in such an upswing. You could make mistakes on a flip, for example, and still make money because the
Mm-hmm.
values of the properties were just going up and up so fast, right? So,
Yeah.
multiple exit strategies is so important.
Hmm. And even I would say also the one thing that is important is that people didn't do it at that time, at the good times, but I don't think it was as critical as it is now. Is, even though you're buying the house now, they wouldn't check to even if they qualify for the refinance part.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So once you buy and then you're going to do the burr and burr it out, actually making sure that you can qualify or you're getting what you expect. And as in like talking to a mortgage broker to make sure that even you can do that. Because even in the good times, I was hearing, I mean, I've heard people in the good times not doing well. And like you really messed up, right? If you're not even doing good in the good times. But one of the things I would hear people be like, oh my God, I can't refinance all that I wanted to because I don't qualify or it doesn't cash flow enough or whatever the reasons were, and that's like some of these things are preventable. And I say right now it's even more important to make sure you understand what it is that you can do with a refi because things are changing. So you have to understand how critical it is if you're going, especially if you're going from a private to an A or B lender. If you're an A or B lender, then it may not be as important, or like that you mean, and yeah, it may not be as important. But if you're going to do a refi, I think it's so important to talk to that mortgage broker and just make sure you know what your end result's going to be and those options there.
Well, and that's exactly what you just said. Like you need to understand what you're getting into. And I think
Mhm.
that in itself is more important than ever, where real estate investors could just plow into the real estate world and we had a really severely up market when we're doing double digit appreciation. Like it was
Yeah.
incredible, right? And so
Yeah.
even just the rental numbers year over year, they were going up 100, 125, $140 a month. I mean, I'd get a turnover and I could go up $100 in a year, which is incredible. Like that's just unheard of.
Mhm.
So it was really, really easy to make a mistake and recover from it before, or not know what you were doing and be able to pivot because it was just such a great market. Now, though, we don't have that option. And the
Mhm.
banks, the A and B lender banks, they've contracted. They're a lot stricter. Private lenders have contracted. They're not lending as easily as they used to. And so, like, it's a lot of work. If you're not on point, then you're going to suffer for sure. And so, what you said is it's important, more important now than ever to understand what you're doing. And I think it's really important to convey that message to people. Like, go out there and get the education and knowledge you need so that you can be
Mhm.
prepared and avoid, because you also said these things are avoidable, they're preventable. And a lot of them
Yes.
are. When you know what you're doing, you can foresee these problems and prepare yourself to avoid that. So, yeah, so it's really important to survive in this market to have that knowledge 100%. So, now one thing that I did want to touch on with what you're doing, you have a unique situation where you work with your husband, and not
Mhm.
everybody can work together. And you've disclosed to me, um, and I hope it's okay that we mention this on the podcast, but you and
Yeah,
he
no.
don't get along when you're working together. You just butt
Yes,
heads.
in yeah, in so and the way we found out about this was because when he started, so like that, I'm the entrepreneur in the relationship. So I was actually the one that pushed him to start getting the build a create a bit renovation business. And so my job in it was I'm going to just maintain, make sure I have the back end working, the numbers make sense, and just make sure the business itself is running. And his job is just go meet the people and do the work and just find the people. And us working in a business together was just like a disaster. We were just butting heads left, right, and center. Like I think I mean, I feel like he needs to be here to explain what maybe his thought process. But to me, because I mean, I can only say what I felt like, what it was. I felt like he thought that maybe I was being more of a boss because I'd have to tell him like, you didn't make money on this project. You need to increase that. So I think he may have felt like I was being the boss when it was just like, I'm just telling you like we need to fix these kind of problems, right? And he just doesn't like the topic of money too much. So I feel like those kind of things were a little iffy for him. But and then so getting into real estate, I was like, I wanted to work together. I'm like, you have a business that helps real estate. I was like, we need to do something together. And so we ended up finding out that I have my own business, he has his business, and I hire him. Like I actually just treat him as a renovation company. I hire him and he does the work for me and it works really well. I can tell you obviously he goes above and beyond than I'm sure he would with other way more cuz I live with him. He has to. But I feel like in that sense there's nothing, I'm not saying anything about his business, if he is making money, losing money, ripping me off, who knows? I don't know. I don't care. All I care about are my numbers and that my stuff is making sense and that he's doing the work because in that sense of working together, we work really well. Like he wants to make sure our houses are going to be successful and he wants the houses look beautiful, and that's what I care about from my contractors, making sure that they care about the project, right? And for me, like that, what I care about in my business is just making sure the numbers work. If the numbers aren't working or if things are coming on, I'm deciding like what needs to be done, if we need to cut costs in one place or do something. So we run in two separate businesses working together, and that works very well. We can work in that way. Together in one business, not so good.
Yeah, well, ultimately, not everybody can work together, and everybody does try to work together. And then they
Mhm.
try to force something to work that just doesn't work. So kudos to you guys to saying, hey, you know what, this isn't working. Let's pivot. Let's try a new way so that we can work together. Because if you're trying to force something to work and it's just not meant to be, it's just going to be miserable for everybody, right? So
Yes. And that's actually
that's
why I left the business too, was because I was like, if I'm going to be in it, our relationship will end. And that's why I was just like, you know what? I've set it up for you. Now you know what to do and you can take care of the rest and like that. And it really helped everything out because all that went away and there was like no more tension or anything. And it just helped a lot.
Well, and again, kudos to you guys for actually putting your relationship before your business, because I think a lot of people don't have the foresight to do that because they just really get focused on making the business work, that they don't
Mm-hmm.
protect the relationship. And I think, you know, just like a business, everything starts at the top. The glue starts from the top and runs down. And so, like, if the partners
Mm-hmm.
aren't getting along and if it's not working, then the whole ecosystem is at risk. So, I think it's really important that you guys saw that and nurtured that. So, that's really important because obviously, if you guys get divorced, then where are you at, right? Then it doesn't matter
Exactly.
if the business is working. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
are you at all in the business now? You completely hands off? You don't get involved on the construction side at all?
No, I do help a little bit, but very like, for example, because like sometimes I'll help him with, let's say, his quotes, just like writing them up or something, or um, doing drawings for him if he needs drawings for giving them to customers and stuff. So there is a little bit of help, but it's just like I'm not like I don't know anything that goes on in his business. So it's just like if he asks for it, I definitely help. But it's I feel like very surface level support that I help him with,
Right.
or finding in
No, and that's
business
great.
sometimes.
Yeah, but just understanding, knowing the lanes that you belong in, I think that's critical. And that's
Mhm.
the truth for any partnership, not just in business, in your marriage, and any relationship, even if it's a parent-child relationship, siblings, you just need to know your lane and respect the other person's lane, right? So tell
Mhm.
me, Diana, about this app. So you've got this app that you've developed and it's to help investors. You're on social
Mhm.
media a lot. You do share a lot of information. You bring on really great people onto your page and share as much as you can to help other investors be successful in this space and entrepreneurs. So tell me about the app and how that is helping real estate investors.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm so passionate about my app. Basically, what happened was I think the engineer started popping out. I thought the engineer was like gone, like bye life, that life is gone. And things again, started slowing down. Us as entrepreneurs, I feel like you can't stay still doing nothing for too long. You always need to have a baby somewhere around there, right? So
Yeah.
I just all of a sudden started realizing, and there were just little things that were bothering me in the industry. Like, for example, finding someone, like, let's say, finding a flipper, finding a specific kind of mentor, it was just, how do you find them? It's like, I need to meet you, to be able to, and then ask you what it is that you do. What are your strategies? What are you doing mentorship? Asking all these questions. And I just thought it'd be nice to be able to, and being able to find some variety, like if I want to find mentors, can I find like a few mentors, or is it because usually I felt like back then I feel like I only knew two and one was not related to anything I wanted to do. And then the other one was close enough. So
Yeah.
one of them was searchability, that I was just like, we need to be able to search different types of investors, different types of mentors, different types of professionals in our industry to be able to find them and it just be more efficient. I feel like even when you go to networking events, be like, oh, I know that person because I've seen his information. And then the other main thing was also building something, obviously learning, starting from the bottom and going up, was it takes time to build credibility, to build trust in the communities. And again, like, where is there a place where you can really show off things and actually be able to share what it is that you do and it be found, because I feel like if you're on social media, it's like once it goes into the news feed, it goes pretty down pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
so that was another thing. I wanted like specific profiles that people could set up their profiles, and I categorized them into three. I did like that one for investors so they can share their investor detail, like the strategies and what kind of investors they are. Same thing for mentors. What type of mentors are they? Who do they serve? Professionals, the exact same thing, right? Like, who are they serving? And then being able to also share the properties that you've worked on to start building that credibility. And even my most favorite part, I have to say, is like in the properties, sharing what the problems were that were encountered and how you solve them. Because to me, that builds a lot of character in a person. You actually know, like, how do these people solve the problem? that come up? Are they, what kind of, like, how do they solve them? Because there's so many ways of solving things, and it just shows the character of the person. And even either you learn from it and you're like, oh my God, I'll make sure that never happens to me again, because they've provided their solution. Or in the same thing, you're like, oh, you know what, I'd love to work with them because I can see myself working them. You can kind of start seeing their personalities come out in like these kind of little things. So that's what made, and then it's a social networking platform. So it's just like, that's what really, those were the two main things, with searchability and searchability and trust and credibility, which were things that I found that were so important, that we just needed in our industry.
Yeah, I think it's definitely needed. It's nice to have one platform to just gather everybody in the industry. And I think that's really cool. If you pick up traction with that and just keep building the database and the people in there, then it'll be like a one-stop shop for anything real estate investing, really. And the vision is incredible. I think it's great. If anybody wanted to find out more about it, where would they go?
Yeah, you can go to realestateInvestorFam.com, and there you can read about it. You can even go and look at the news feed without logging in, so you can even get an idea, look at where the members are, and get to know them. And even if you, and I mean, it's free to join, so you can also join for free. And even the paid version isn't very much; it's only 168, and you get, that's like that when you're really wanting to build your trust and credibility, then you're going to want to get that. And 168 for a year, I mean, I feel like that's very cheap right now, and it's actually going to be going up in I think next month putting it up. So yeah, I think that's the place where you can find more information and just check it out and roam around and see if you like it.
Yeah, the hundred and change. I mean, that's only like what, 14, $15 a month in order to have access to this. So, like, guys, there's a lot of people in there. It's only going to get bigger. The price will only get bigger as well. Will only go up as it becomes more popular. So, if you want to be one of the front runners on this and an early adopter of this program, go check it out. It's really, really cool. Um, yeah. So I would love to know, outside of the app, like, what's next for you? What are you going to be focused on doing now moving forward?
Um, like in real estate, I guess, then on the
Yeah.
real estate side of things. On the
Yeah.
real estate side of things, I'm still trying to, it's really funny because I feel like you have that conflict of, we love doing those really big gut jobs. We love big
Yep.
projects. But right now, for example, like that, the market is very hard because renovations compared to the price of selling houses or even refining houses, they don't actually still match. Like, we're still having a conflict between like what you buy and what you sell. And again, that's like the patience part. Like, it will come, but I feel like that still, you see sellers, that don't agree with the prices that you give, but you're just like, it costs a lot right now to renovate, especially the big guts. Like right now, it's all about the cosmetics. So we want to do big projects. Um, but again, it's all about the patience, waiting for those projects to come. And like that, I think once I get my application to a stable place, I'm one of those people, it's like you put your mind to it. Like, mindset is everything, right? Like, once you put
Hmm.
your mind into it, it will come, because usually I find deals quite quickly. And I know the reason I haven't found anything right now is mainly, to be honest, just because my baby right now is the application. So once that's like in a place where it's stable enough that I can focus on buying a property more, I'll definitely be buying property. And like that, I like the big projects, they're a lot of fun. And like that, because we're dealing with like such unique type of cases going on. It's like that's where the money's also made. Like, we get these like crazy problems come up that when you're even trying to buy the houses, but that comes with really good profits too, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I like
For
those.
sure.
Again, it's all about the creativity. Like, if my mind is being creative, my mind's in a happy place.
I love
It's
that.
true.
I love that. The engineer just wants to problem solve.
Yeah, yeah. Just give me a problem, give me a little puzzle, and I'm good to go.
So funny. Well, you've got a big puzzle with the app that you're working on, so good luck with that. I know what it's like to have a big project and you just like focused on that. I I can totally relate to that with what I'm working on right now. And so yeah, I totally get it. The
Yeah, we're both in the same boat, I feel like, right? We're both
yeah,
like building. We're in a building phase right now.
yeah. So I'm doing what you're doing, building a community. It's just looking a little bit different how we're going about it. So yeah, absolutely love that. But yeah, so gosh, if anybody wanted to reach out to you and find out more about that, so the app, they can go online and kind of sniff around. But if they wanted to connect with you, even just on the private lending side, because you do some private lending, on the construction side, because you do have a construction company that does cater to investors and a whole bunch of other great stuff going on, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me anywhere on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and they're all the same. It's Investor Girl Diana. So it's very easy to find. And you can send me a DM. Love to chat with you guys, see how I can help in whichever way, even if you have questions. I love to share information.
Yep. No, and that's true. That is true for Diana. I've seen it, and if you check out her posts on Instagram too, on Facebook, there's lots of stuff there you can sift through and just get a feel of who she is and what she does, and see if you connect with her. So reach out to her if you do. And yeah, Diana, thank you so much for coming. And is there any last like ninja tip that you want to share with people out there before we sign off?
Let's see. I would say I would say this environment is actually very good for the newer investors. I know we're talking about, I feel like we're talking about more experienced investors, but the reason why I say it's good for the new investors is because you actually have the time to go to properties, put conditions in, and actually take your time to analyze these properties. I think the reason, for example, like I'm telling you, people that were doing bad in the good times were these new investors getting stuck in the FOMO and just buying anything, not really running their numbers. And just making a mess of themselves, to be honest. Whereas like right now, don't get stuck in the fear too, because I feel like that is always a problem with the new. It's like either you're in the good times getting stuck in the FOMO, or in the bad times getting stuck in the fear, trying to have it always like that, talking to the community. Actually, now you talk about community, talking to the community, because helps you reduce that stress, right? It helps you reduce the fears, because you're always going to have fear, but just making sure you have the knowledge to back it up, I feel like makes it easier. But I think this is a great time for new investors, because you have the time to actually look at things without being rushed and taking your times to do it. And thank you so much, Danielle. It was so much fun to be on here. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. I know you're a busy lady, so taking the time and coming out and doing this, I do appreciate that, and sharing with my audience some great tips and tricks, and really just understanding how you're pivoting in your business to survive in this market. And I do appreciate you coming and sharing all these golden nuggets. Diana Lizarazo, thank you. This is
Thank you.
Danielle Chason signing off for the Let's Get Real Estate podcast, where I bring to you real people doing real estate. Bye for now.
Bye.